All right, who can tell me what has happened so far in Flat Stanley? Gia, what's something that happened?
He catched the bad guys, and he got 7 and 2 for 15 minutes.
Yes, so he helped catch the bad guys who were stealing paintings from the art museum, and he got stuck in a tree for 15 minutes because his brother left him there when he was being a kite. You got it. Perfect. All right, so let's see here. This chapter is chapter 5, and like I said, this is our last chapter. And Gia made a good point. She got a Flat Stanley book from the library, so it's a little smaller one than this one. So there's tons of Flat Stanley books, so keep your eye out. I bet Mrs. D'Angelo might have other ones down there. All right, so chapter 5 is Arthur's Good Idea. For a while, Stanley Lambchop was a famous name. Everywhere that Stanley went, people stared and pointed at him. He could hear them whisper, "Over there, Agnes, over there. That must be Stanley Lambchop, the one who caught the sneak thieves," and things like that. But after a few weeks of the whispering and the staring, it stopped. People had other things to think about. Stanley didn't mind though. Being famous had been fun, but enough was enough. And then came a further change, and it was not a pleasant one. People began to laugh and make fun of him as he passed by. "Hello, super skinny," they would shout, and even ruder things at him about the way he looked. Stanley told his parents how he felt. "It's the other kids I mostly mind," he said. "They don't like me anymore because I'm different, flat." "Shame on them," Mrs. Lambchop said. "It's wrong to dislike people for their shape, or for their religion, for that matter, or the color of their skin." "I know," Stanley said, "only maybe it's impossible for everyone to like everybody." "Perhaps," said Mrs. Lambchop, "but they can try." Later that night, Arthur Lambchop was woken by the sound of crying. In the darkness, he crept across the room and knelt by Stanley's bed. "Are you okay?" he said. "Go away," Stanley said. "Don't be mad at me," Arthur said. "You're still mad because I let you get tangled the other day when you were my kite, I guess." "Leave it alone, will you?" Stanley said. "I'm not mad. Go away." Why do you think he keeps telling his brother to go away? Josiah, what do you think?
Because he was getting bullied, that he was very skinny, and they were laughing at him because he was very skinny, and that wasn't enough.
Yeah, you're right. So Stanley was getting made fun of by his other friends. So his other classmates were making fun of him. So it's making Stanley kind of upset. So Stanley was crying and Arthur came over. Why do you think Stanley is telling Arthur to go away though? Why do you think he's telling him to go away? Wes, what do you think?
Because sometimes people want alone time when they're sad.
Yeah, sometimes people want to be alone when they're sad, right? Raise your hand if you've been sad and you just kind of wanted to be alone at that time. You didn't want people to ask you, just kind of needed a moment. Yeah, sometimes we all have that moment. So Arthur thought he was mad because he got him stuck in a tree, but Stanley said it's not that, just leave it alone. Yes, Gia?
When I'm sad and I try to get alone time, that's probably zero because I always need to help out with the baby and my brother.
Sometimes it's hard, right? All right, well, let's see what Arthur does here. "I'm not mad. Go away. Please, let's be friends." Arthur couldn't help crying a little too. "Oh, Stanley," he said, "please tell me what's wrong." So that's sweet. His brother kind of wants to cry too because his brother's upset. And that happens sometimes, right? If you see someone who's upset, kind of sometimes makes you upset too, right? Especially if it's a close friend and you see them crying, you kind of get upset that they're upset too. Stanley waited for a long time before he spoke. The thing is, he said, I'm just not happy. I'm tired of being flat. I want to be a regular sheep again, like other people. But I'll have to go on being flat forever. It makes me sad. Oh, Stanley, Arthur said. He dried his tears on the corner of Stanley's sheet and could think of nothing more to say. Don't talk about what I just said, Stanley told him. I don't want to make our parents worry. That would only make it worse. You're brave, Arthur said. You really are. Do you think it's a good idea to not tell his parents how you're feeling? No, yeah, you should probably tell your parents how you're feeling, especially if you're feeling sad. They can usually help you out or kind of make you feel a little better. So Stanley's kind of feeling really down and sad, and he doesn't really like how he looks anymore. And so he told his brother, don't tell Mom and Dad what I said, because I don't want them to worry about me. But it's a parent's job to worry about you, and it's their job to take care of you, so you should tell them. You're brave, Arthur said. You really are. He took hold of Stanley's hand. The two brothers sat together in the dark, being friends. They were both a little sad, but each one felt a little better than he had before. And then, suddenly, though he was not even trying to think, Arthur had an idea. He jumped up and turned on the light and ran to the big storage box where the toys and things were kept. He began to rummage in the box. Stanley sat on the bed to watch. Arthur flung aside a football and some lead soldiers and airplane models and lots of wooden blocks, and then he said, aha! He had found what he wanted, an old bicycle pump. He held it up, and Stanley and he looked at each other. What do you think his idea is? So a bicycle pump, for those that don't know, like the wheels on a bicycle, you have like a pump to fill up the tires. So what do you think his idea is? Hunter, what do you think his idea is? So fill something with it? Okay. What do you think, Luke?
I think he's going to pump Stanley up so that he can be bigger.
Who has that same idea that he's going to use the bike pump on Stanley? All right, let's see. They looked at each other. Okay, Stanley said at last, but take it easy. He put one end of the long pump nose in his mouth and clamped his lips tightly about it so that no air could escape. I'll go slowly, and if it hurts or anything, wiggle your hands at me. So neither one of them said what they were doing, but they both know they're going to use the bike pump to pump him up. So he has it in his mouth, and if it hurts or anything, he's going to go like this so his brother knows. He began to pump. At first, nothing happened except Stanley's cheeks bulged a little bit bigger. Arthur watched his hand. There was no wiggle signal, so he pumped on. Then, suddenly, Stanley's top half began to swell. It's working, shouted Arthur, pumping away. Stanley spread his arms out so that the air could get around inside him more easily. He got bigger and bigger. The buttons on his pajama top burst off. Pop, pop, pop. A moment more, and he was all rounded out. Head and body, arms and legs. But not his right foot. That foot stayed flat. Arthur stopped pumping. It's like trying to do the very last bit of those long balloons, he said. Maybe a good shake would help. Stanley shook out his right foot twice, and he shook it, and with a little whooshing sound, it swelled out to match the left one. There stood Stanley Lambchop as he used to be, as if he had never been flat at all. Thank you, Arthur, Stanley said. Thank you very much. The brothers were shaking hands when Mr. Lambchop strode into the room with Mrs. Lambchop. We heard you, said Mr. Lambchop, up and talking when you ought to be asleep, eh? Shame on George, said Mrs. Lambchop. Stanley's round again. You're right, said Mr. Lambchop, noticing. Good for you, Stanley. I'm the one who did it, Arthur said. I blew him up. Everyone was terribly excited and happy, of course. Mrs. Lambchop made hot chocolate to celebrate the occasion, and several toasts were drank to Arthur and his cleverness. When the little party was over, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop tucked the boys back into their beds, gave them a kiss, and turned off the lights. "Good night," they said. "Good night," said Stanley and Arthur. It had been a very long and tiring day. Very soon, all the Lambchops were asleep. The end. So what do we think of our book so far? Go ahead, Wes.
Wait, there's more?
That's it. You liked it? So that was the end of our book. What do you think, Jesse? You liked it? I'll see. I know there's more. I'll have to see if like maybe Miss D'Angelo has it or if my library has it. Go ahead, Hunter. You liked it? Does anyone have a favorite part they want to share? Does anyone have a favorite part? Go ahead, Gia.
Was there any pictures in that chapter?
I think there was one where they were pumping him up. Yeah, I'll show it to these guys and then I'll come around and show you guys before we end. So there they are pumping him up to make him round again.